Andy Burham had the power to stop the grooming gangs, but he chose not to. Instead, he's complained about the over-politicization of the issue and called concern about the grooming gangs propaganda.
There's been over-politicization of this issue. People have used it for their political purposes rather than just focus on the issue and the victims and what's right. The levels of propaganda.
Thousands of girls endured horrific abuse at the hands of depraved predators, including in the Makerfield constituency. Yet now Andy Burham seeks to use the very communities he failed so badly to catapult himself to power. Reform UK will not stand for this. Today we announce new policies to deliver the justice that the establishment has denied these survivors for decades. The grooming gang scandal represents the greatest state failure in modern British history. Public bodies, including councils, police, social services, and ministers, actively facilitated and concealed the systematic rape and exploitation of vulnerable British children. These were overwhelmingly white, working-class girls targeted by monstrous gangs, disproportionately made up of men of Pakistani heritage. For years, the authorities placed community relations above the safety of British girls. Fathers attempting to rescue their daughters from houses of abuse found themselves arrested by the police. Victims were dismissed as troublemakers or willing participants. A social worker in Bradford accompanied a 15-year-old girl, raped and impregnated by her abuser, to a wedding and recommended she live with the man and his family. Police lost vital DNA evidence. Operations targeting these gangs were abruptly shut down. Senior officers and councillors obsessed over potential far-right backlash while real children suffered in silence. Andy Burnham's record on this issue is indefensible. He served in the Home Office under David Blunkett at a time when reports of widespread abuse poured in. In 2003, survivor Amy, forced into sex acts with multiple men at just 13 years old, reported her ordeal to South Yorkshire Police. The blood and DNA evidence she provided inexplicably disappeared. Her family wrote directly to the Home Office. Nothing was done. Just months after Burham took up his role as a Home Office minister, Greater Manchester Police closed down Operation Augusta. This was set up after the horrific death of 15-year-old Victoria Agolio, injected with heroin by a 50-year-old man. Instead of pursuing justice for Victoria, the police blamed her, quote, propensity to provide sexual favors. The perpetrator received a pathetic 3.5-year sentence and was never charged with causing her death. When the full horror in Greater Manchester finally emerged, Burham, as mayor, resisted calls for a proper national inquiry for years. He only launched a limited local review after a TV documentary forced his hand.
Explain to me how your proposed benefit ration card system would work.
Good morning, Camilla. Well, this is part of our wider plans to reduce benefit spending, including by preventing all foreign citizens from receiving any benefits. This particular announcement today relates to criminals, criminals with community sentences or suspended sentences, or for the year or period on licence after leaving prison, and for a year thereafter. We think it is immoral, we think it's wrong that those criminals who receive benefits funded by hard-working taxpayers can then spend that on gambling or on alcohol or on cigarettes. So rather than give those people cash, which essentially is what happens at the moment, they would instead get a payment card, and that payment card would not be able to be used to withdraw cash from an ATM, transfer money to other people, or be used for buying alcohol or for gambling, for example. We think that is the least that we should be doing to protect taxpayers from having their money wasted on people with criminal convictions who might then go and waste that money.
Well, why not extend it beyond criminals? Should anyone claiming benefits be spending it on booze, fags and bookies?
Well, today's announcement is just about criminals. I think there's some more thinking to do along the lines you mentioned, but that's not for today's announcement. This is about criminals, where there's an overwhelming moral case. We also need to get the benefit bill down more generally. Welfare is far too high. It's wrong that foreign citizens currently get benefits. That will end under a Conservative government. It's also wrong that people with mild anxiety or mild depression get signed off sick without even seeing a doctor face to face, billions of pounds are getting paid to them. That must frankly end as well, and under the next Conservative government it will end, and we'll use the money saved on those things to partly pay down the national debt, but also spend more money on our military and, of course, also cut taxes.
Seriously, he was actually treated in a way that meant an accusation of a racial slur was treated more seriously than an act of murder. What does he say? I can't breathe. Familiar words? Remember career criminal George Floyd, who died in appalling circumstances in Midwest America a few years ago. Remember the reaction to that and the way the police behaved. Within a few days, Keir Starmer was taking the knee. Black Lives Matter exploded all over the country. Churchill's statue was defaced, the cenotaph was vandalised. And yet, what has the public reaction been from our leaders and politicians, and indeed, to be frank, much of the media to this? Silence. Absolute silence. Proof, if ever there was any, that we're living in a two-tier culture in this country where the rights and privileges of white people matter less than those of ethnic minorities.
In relation to knife controls, there have been calls to limit the right of Sikhs to carry their ceremonial knife, the kirpan, one of the 5 holy items in their faith. The Offensive Weapons Act of 2019, passed under the previous government, clarified and strengthened existing legal protections in relation to long kirpans. This included extending defences so that kirpans can be lawfully possessed for religious reasons and used in religious and ceremonial contexts. But let me be clear, carrying a knife for the purpose of religious observance is one thing. Using it, as so tragically occurred in this case, is quite another. It is a vile act, a crime of the utmost severity, and it will be met with the severest punishment.
Kemi Badanoch, how did you feel when you saw the police body camera of Henry Nowak's last moments?
I can't describe how I felt. Even thinking about it now makes me incredibly emotional. I watched it because I just needed to see for myself what had happened, and all I was thinking of was that could have been my kid. And I just could not express to you how awful I feel for Henry and his family. How to have those to be his dying moments. It's an awful way to die, an appalling way to die. I don't think the police could have saved his life, but for him to have been handcuffed, his rights being read to him, the person who killed him standing over his body, calling him a racist, no one should ever have to die like that. And my heart goes out to his father, his sister, his mother. I watched them give their statement. You know, my eyes were welling up in tears. No family should ever have to go through what they have gone through. No one should ever have to go through what Henry went through.
He said, I've been stabbed 9 times. And the police said, I don't think so, mate. And then handcuffed him, and he died. I think that's absolutely appalling.
It is appalling, and I think every parent in the country will be looking at that and thinking, how could this happen? And what I see now is a state and state bodies, police, who don't know how to do the right thing anymore. Where is the common sense? That is what I'm about. I'm about common sense. You don't need a list of rules and regulations to tell you what to do in that situation. Simple humanity should have allowed them to ask more questions. And I do think that part of the problem is the training that the police have been given. All of this nonsense that came in after the Black Lives Movement, these race action plans. As a minister, I wrote to public authorities, all public authorities in the country. I had multiple meetings with the National Police Chiefs Council, with the Met, with the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, saying that this thing that they're pushing is just a different kind of racism. I do not want police looking at the colour of your skin when they're deciding how to treat you. If that had been a white boy saying he'd said something rude to me, I don't think that they would have handcuffed him. I think they would have asked more questions.
So the police are more worried about being seen as racist and dealing with a dying man?
I think they are, because that's what they're being taught. You look
a dying child, as you're saying?
Yes, and we need to root this out of the system. I fought this stuff as a minister. You need ministers who are continually telling public bodies, no, we're not doing that. There is no one doing that in this government now. I'm not blaming the government for this, but they are afraid. They are terrified of these situations, and they are using rules for a different age for now. The old rules don't apply anymore. Our country is not racist. I do not believe the police are institutionally racist. I put out a report saying so. This Labour Party came out, one of their MPs said I was the blackface of white supremacy. They called me an Uncle Tom, coconut. I had all sorts of names said about me when I was saying that our country is not racist and we need equality under the law above all things. And I will continue to fight for that now.
These were absolutely heinous crimes. Obviously, it is good news that they have finally been brought to justice, or a degree of justice. It's the least that we can do for the victims. But the sentences that are being routinely handed out to rape gang perpetrators like this are, to my mind, pathetically short. You know, there was one individual here who had raped a child and was being sentenced for 6.5 years. I mean, he might be out on licence in 5 years or even less. This isn't good enough. It's an insult to the victims. I want to see rape gang perpetrators being given whole life sentences so they never walk the streets of this country again. And if they are not British citizens, or if they are dual nationals, then they should be being deported back home to their own country, irrespective of where that is, to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, to wherever it might be. Get them out of this country. That is what we want to see. That will require a change to the law, but that needs to happen, and it couldn't happen soon enough, because people I speak to, frankly, would bring back the death penalty for these individuals. You know, nothing is too harsh a penalty for these individuals, but the very least that we can do is make sure that they are not back out on the streets, able to commit these heinous crimes again within 6.5 years. I mean, come on.
America is watching. The murder of Henry Nowak is no longer just a British story. It's not just confined to the United Kingdom, because all across America tonight, the media are looking at Britain and asking one question: how did it get this bad? This was Fox News last night.
When the left wing is in charge, you're not safe. Well, unless you're a member of the protected class du jour. The entire system of policing there is infected by the woke edicts of their overlords. Digwa himself was eventually arrested, sentenced to life in prison, but get this, he may only do as little as 21 years. His victim, however, never reached the age of 21. The influx of migrants, mass immigration, refugees, the coddling of criminals, the targeting in many ways, at least they feel that way, of native-born Brits, the old British system, in decline. I think it's in despair.
Elsewhere, this was the Megyn Kelly show. Take a look.
It's despicable. Every single cop on that scene should be fired.
I have to give some responsibility here to Keir Starmer. This is Keir Starmer's Britain. You know, he is Neville Chamberlain 2.0.
You know, when I put my ex-cop hat on, knives obviously can kill, but so can the woke mind virus.
Imagine if the races were reversed. Right. There would be riots in the street. There were.
And this was also primetime media Will Kane on Fox News last night.
A white teenage kid is dying on a street in England, and you can hear him tell police he can't breathe, just like George Floyd in 2020. So why do some victims become symbols while others do not?
It didn't stop there. This was Real America's Voice.
And the identity, the us against them, that's not something that white people ever sought. That's not something that white people ever looked for at all. But it's been imposed. And it's here. And it's happening. Why is it that every single other group is able to have an identity other than white people?
This is how America now sees us in Britain. They cannot believe what our country has become. The land of Churchill, Magna Carta, common law, now being held up as a warning sign. The grooming gang scandal, the Manchester Arena bombing, Valdo Calacane, Axel Rudabakana, the illegal migrant boat crisis in the Channel. Again and again, critics say British institutions ducked difficult questions, they avoided uncomfortable truths and put political sensitivities ahead of public safety, all at the altar of so-called anti-racism. And now, after the killing of Henry Nowak, the rest of the world is asking whether Britain's leaders have completely lost the courage to say what ordinary people can plainly see.
I think an extra 10 million people is going to have an effect on housing.
Do you think that if we lock down our borders, we're going to solve the housing crisis?
Well,
is that going to solve it?
The thing is, the more people you have in a country, the more houses you're going to need. I know it might sound...
He's really good at explaining things like this, isn't he? Yeah.
I'll make sure.
Yeah. Using immigration on the issue of housing, I think is absolutely...
Are you saying it has no impact on housing?
I think Andy wanted to come in.
Do you want to just answer that question, Rob? Do you think it has no impact on
immigration have an effect on housing?
Whoever lives in this country has an impact on housing, of course.
All right.
The numbers of people in a country, that's not necessarily to do with immigration.
Let me...
most of the victims.
Let me ask you
talking.
a question, sir. All of the knife crime that's happening in London, all of the blood that's running on the streets, considering you can't even wear a nice watch in that city anymore, is it white people or black people who are doing the stabbing?
Well,
I'm half white, half black. You can't offend me. Just tell me the truth.
And who are
Which
most
one
of the
are you thinking
victims?
Who's doing all the killing?
And who are most of the victims?
Well, some of them are black. Some of them are white. It doesn't matter.
Actually, the vast majority are black. So
I
your
don't
whole
care if
argument,
blacks kill
the whole
only
argument
blacks.
you've been
Blacks
shouting
shouldn't be
about,
killing people.
the whole argument you've been shouting about for the last 10 minutes, you've just exposed yourself as being a misleading argument.
Absolutely not. I don't care if black people kill only black.
I know that there is a big problem with young black men in London committing knife crime, and the vast majority of the victims of that knife crime are also black. That is just a statistical fact, right? So it just flies slightly in the face of your white genocide nonsense, which I call nonsense because there is no evidence of a white genocide.
Of course there is.
No, there isn't.
Of course there is.
No,
White
there isn't.
people are losing their countries in real time. White people are less percentage of the population of Earth than they've ever been.
Do you even know
White
what
people's
genocide
history is being
means?
replaced.
Do you know what
there's no white
genocide means?
genocide? They're literally disappearing from the planet, sir.
This may explain why you keep saying genocide about Israel from October the 8th onwards. You said it was a genocide. It may be you don't understand what a genocide actually is.
Of course I do. I
No,
very
you do.
clearly understand what a genocide is.
Well, if you think
When
it's
you're
to do
trying
with white people in
erase
England,
an entire
you don't
race of
understand what
people
genocide
here.
is, do you?
That is a genocide. The level of psyop, which has been orchestrated upon the white person to give up all of their love of their history, to believe that all of their ancestors' work doesn't count, to believe that their God-given lands aren't theirs, to believe that they have no right to live in harmony or racial cohesion with anyone around them. The level of psyop that's been inflicted upon the white man is absolutely monumental, perhaps the largest psyop in history. Let me ask you, why did the British Empire give its lands back?
What do you mean?
Well, the British Empire, the British are the largest empire in history. Why did we give Uganda back or the Caribbean? Why did we give it back?
Because we took a lot of that land to start with.
Because we took it. Because it is their land given to them by God. This was the assumption that the British state came up with. Oh, we can't take someone else's land. It's theirs. It was given to them by God, and they have an ancestral right to that land. So what right does that give the white person to the countries that they settled? What right does that give the white person to England? Because it's his ancestors and his land. He has a God-given right.
If you're to the victims,
Let me ask
talking.
you a question, sir. All of the knife crime that's happening in London, all of the blood that's running on the streets, considering you can't even wear a nice watch in that city anymore, is it white people or black people who are doing the stabbing? I'm half white, half black. You can't offend me. Just tell me the truth.
And who are
Which
most
one
of
are
the
you thinking
victims?
Who's doing all the killing?
And who are most of the victims?
Well, some of them are black. Some of them are white. It doesn't matter.
Actually, the vast majority are black. So
I
your
don't
whole
care if
argument,
blacks kill
the whole
only
argument
blacks.
you've been
Blacks
shouting
shouldn't
about,
be killing people.
the whole argument you've been shouting about for the last 10 minutes, you've just exposed yourself as being a
Absolutely
misleading
not.
argument.
Absolutely not. I don't care if black people kill only black.
I know that there is a big problem with young black men in London committing knife crime, and the vast majority of the victims of that knife crime are also black. That is just a statistical fact, right? So it just flies slightly in the face of your white genocide nonsense, which I call nonsense because there is no evidence of a white genocide.
Of course there is.
No, there isn't.
Of course there is.
No,
White
there isn't.
people are losing their countries in real time. White people are less percentage of the population of Earth than they've ever been.
Do you even know
White
what
people's
genocide
history is
means?
being replaced.
Do you know what
there's no white
genocide means?
genocide? They're literally disappearing from the planet, sir.
This may explain why you keep saying genocide about Israel from October the 8th onwards. You said it was a genocide. It may be you don't understand what a genocide actually is.
Of course I do. I
No, you
very
do.
clearly understand what a genocide is.
Well, if you
When
think
you're
it's to
trying
do with white
erase
people in
an
England,
entire
you don't
race of
understand what
people
genocide
here.
is, do you?
That is a genocide. The level of psyop, which has been orchestrated upon the white person to give up all of their love of their history, to believe that all of their ancestors' work doesn't count, to believe that their God-given lands aren't theirs, to believe that they have no right to live in harmony or racial cohesion with anyone around them. The level of psyop that's been inflicted upon the white man is absolutely monumental, perhaps the largest psyop in history. Let me ask you, why did the British Empire give its lands back?
What do you mean?
Well, the British Empire, the British had the largest empire in history. Why did we give Uganda back, or the Caribbean? Why did we give it back?
Because we took a lot of that land to start with.
Because we took it. Because it is their land, given to them by God. This was the assumption that the British state came up with. We can't take someone else's land. It's theirs. It was given to them by God, and they have an ancestral right to that land. So what right does that give the white person to the countries that they settled? What right does that give the white person to England? Because it's his ancestors and his land. He has a God-given right.
Divisive. And yet, Farage had his say. Kemi Badanoch had his say. People are angry. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how your Prime Minister responded to Henry Nowak's tragic death.
Well, I think Nigel Farage's reaction is the wrong reaction. And I start my answer to your question through the eyes of the family. They have said they do not want this whipped up. They have been through the most extraordinary, awful experience. They don't want this whipped up. And Nigel Farage is completely wrong to use this to try and create division. He would be wrong in any circumstances. But when Henry's family are saying, please don't do that, it's our son, then really, as politicians, as human beings, we should start where they start, and that's where I start.
Going to try and be really calm because my kids are listening in the car. Morning, Ollie. Morning, Iris. You insignificant, you sponge of uselessness. You accuse politicians who speak out because they understand the depth of anger as being divisive, and yet you use the shield of Henry Nowak's family, who, were really, really dignified, and I completely accept that. You use that as a shield because you do not want to accept that there is two-tier policing, because you are too terrified of upsetting certain people and it coming back and biting you on the backside. Well, everybody knows you're toast. And just watching his response, peeps, is it just me? That's our leader? My God, unbelievable. Hey, check this. There might be some power in talk. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. We've just heard that the National Police Chiefs Council is reviewing its racial bias policy. Good. Change it. Because every single person, whatever their colour, creed or religion, who breaks the law, whether they're a grooming gang assailant or they stab somebody in the street, I don't care the colour of their skin, I don't care where they come from, I don't give a damn. They should all be treated exactly the same.
Equality does not mean...
Do you think the police are institutionally racist?
I think the correct answer to that has to be yes, given literally on their website it tells people not to treat people the same, to not be colourblind. And I was listening to your interview with the Justice Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, where, and I couldn't believe my ears again, he said that, and I quote, equality does not mean treating people the same. That is literally the definition, the dictionary definition of equality. And he could not respond to your question, to your credit. You put to him, should everybody be treated the same regardless of their race? He could not answer yes. So if you ask me, is there institutional racism, when literally the Justice Minister and the police's own guidelines instruct officers not to treat people the same according to their race, there can only be one answer, and that is yes.
But does the current status of how police are trained erase decades of evidence that it's ethnic minorities who get a harsher ride from the police and justice system?
I don't think any new evidence erases any previous evidence, but this is also a really important point, because some people put to me, somebody who's an ethnic minority, oh, but Zia, are there no examples of police racism against ethnic minorities? Of course there are such examples. But I put it to you, Laura, that not a single one of those examples is in compliance with the police code of conduct. And that's why we've got to talk about this, because the point we have made time and again, and as has Nigel, we want to live in a country where everyone's treated equally, where regardless of what religion you are, you don't get to carry deadly weapons. And if you vote for a Reform MP and we get a Reform government, Nigel's the Prime Minister, I'm the Home Secretary, regardless of what religion you are, you will not be carrying a deadly weapon on our street.